No, we're right where we need to be. Kid World is cool. I was sitting there, and somebody's like, I was a little lightheaded, so I put some food in. Yeah, you need some fuel in the tank. Sometimes, no, the fuel is hitting up here, and then so, like, your fuel is getting low on fuel. And you sit there and you think, you go, I'm going on empty, and so it's okay, fuel. And every 4 hours they say we need to eat. And kids are natural snackers because they know their bodies tell them every 4 hours they need to eat, so they tell their mom, I'm hungry, and a lot of times they're pregnant, you're not hungry. You just need to drink, well, sometimes you get to drink water, but you also need food because you don't, and then you eat everything. It's like, well, I'm not hungry now. So you eat what you need, and then you go, and kids know what their bodies need. And adults, because we've been trained to eat every 8 hours, or I don't know what it is, every 6 hours, I can't remember, something like that. But we adults always know better. We're listening to our bodies, but we're all tired, out of shape. And okay, kids are smart. So I thought about that too, because me and my mom used to have really cool talks when I was a kid. And I would sit there, and I didn't realize I was just about 2 years old. 2 years old. And we used to live on this street called Gig Street. I was there the day. Went down there and saw some of the kind of the old buildings we used to live in. We lived in this little old, it was an older building. It was long, but we go down there and it had this living room in it, and we had a TV. And I sit there and watch TV. And on TV I'd watch some cartoons, but the one thing I used to watch the most was a show called The Lone Ranger. And the Lone Ranger was a cowboy gentleman who had a blue suit and a black mask and a white hat. And he rode a white horse called Silver. And he had a friend named Tonto, who was an Indian man, a Native American man, who helped him. And they went around and they helped people that were being treated bad. And it started out, and this was a hearty hi-o Silver and a cloud of dust, and let's go to those thrilling days of yesteryear. And he would talk, and I would watch these shows, and I could understand the shows. I was 2. I said, listen to the shows, and I loved the names of the guys on the song. It said starring Clayton Moore as Lone Rangers and Jay Silverhills as Tonto. And I was like looking at it, and I realized they didn't live in the West, and so I kind of asked Mom's questions about it, and she said, well, they're actors, and so they act like they're back in the cowboy days. Oh, cool. That'd be fun to be an actor and act like you're in the cowboy days all day. Yeah. So I was 2. I didn't realize I was 2. I thought I was about 5, but my sister was born when I was 4, and we moved out of that place and into a new house about a year and a half before my little sister was born, or maybe a year before my little sister was born. And so, yeah, I was anywhere from 2 to 3. So it's 2.5, 3 years old. And so I'm sitting there watching these shows, and my mom would explain it to me. And then so we drove around town, and I looked around town for these actors, and I never saw Clayton Moore and Jay Silverhills. So I was kind of fuzzy, because I was like, man, I'd like to see them. I'd like to meet them. I especially like to meet Tonto. So I was sitting there, and I would look around town, and maybe, Clayton Moore wore a mask, so if so I looked for Tonto. I couldn't see him. So then finally, I figured that they must live in El Paso, which was where Grandma lived, which was 40 miles to the south of here. That they must live in El Paso. And then I watched the movie, the TV station said that the TV station was in El Paso. So I figured that Clayton Moore and Jay Silverhills actors lived in El Paso, Texas. So I talked to Mom about it one day, and she was like, no, there's a place called Los Angeles, which is way far away from here. Because when I was a little kid, I saw, we went to Deming, Alamogordo, and El Paso, and then Truth or Consequences is a town named Tears. It used to be named Hot Springs, but they had a TV show that they would go and do this TV show thing there if you change your name of your town to Truth or Consequences. They used to have this guy, Bob Barker, on it, who was on this show called The Price is Right for a long time. But you guys don't know all that stuff because you're a little kid and I'm old, and that makes me feel old. You're not funny. Your grandma knows, and your mama knows. Okay, just being silly. But yeah, we used to watch TV, and we watched a lot of TV like you, and things change. And I notice everything's different on TV, and I have to ask my kids, who's that? Who's this? What's that? What's going on? Everything's changed. But a lot of the stuff is still kind of the same. We had TV shows and cartoons and and actors and actresses, and I used to, when I was about 2 or 3, I could figure out, and I would ask my mom these questions. And it made me think of certain things, like when we were in the Bible, and they tell the story about the great flood with Noah. And there's no evidence of this great flood where everybody was wiped out, but what I would tell people is he lived in this place called the Tigris-Euphrates River Valley. And then he could see and he could watch that they had ice caps and things, and the temperature was changing and the environment was changing that would wash down, and they'd get these big rain floods in the summertime. And he had a dream one time, and he said, and he could see and he could watch nature. He said, those ice things are going to melt on those mountains, and we're going to have big floods. It's going to wash us all out. So God told him to build a big boat to save him and his family. And then he said, get the animals 2 by 2, meaning like he had himself and his wife, and he had kids, and there was, I think, 3 sons, and possibly some daughters and some son-in-laws, but mostly just the sons. It looks like sons with the daughters, and that they came in. So he had to get animals 2 by 2. So that meant like 2 cows for Noah and his wife, and 2 cows for Enid and his wife, and some of the other sons, and Enoch and the other sons. So when they said 2 by 2, he meant you're going to need a male and a female cow or whatever and stuff. And a lot of times he probably didn't even need to get the 2 by 2. He probably needed to get, like, maybe you don't want too many male bulls on there, but you needed enough cows for maybe 2 by 2 cows, 2 female cows for each family, and then maybe a couple, 1 or 2 bulls. If you put too many bulls on, they're going to be fighting. It's just common sense. You just got to think, okay? So when he got the 2 by 2, he meant that enough to get 2 animals for each one of his family is what was going on. And so when that big flood came in, it flooded the whole world. It flooded all of Noah's world. And they got washed out into the Mediterranean Sea, and he looked around, and he'd never been that far south before, and he looked out, and he looked, and if you've ever been on an ocean or out on a sea like the Mediterranean Sea, if you've never been out on the ocean or never been on the sea, it looks like the whole world's covered in water. Yeah, so that's where this story comes from, and that's what he's thinking, and he's writing it down. And this is from a long time ago, like that little kid in Las Cruces, New Mexico, named Ralph Earl Parsons Jr., who thought that Clayton Moore and Jay Silverheels lived in El Paso because that was where the TV station is, and Mom told him they were actors when he was about 2 or 3, and so he said, okay, I've never seen them, because El Paso's a real big city, and they must live in El Paso where Grandma lives. Yeah. That's where a lot of our stories and stuff come from, in the way that we understand our stories. And then they say, there's no scientific evidence to back this up. And then other people that are biblical scholars try to find all the scientific evidence to back it up. And they're not going to find scientific evidence to back it up, because there's too much scientific evidence to show that if certain things had happened at other times, that other people in the world were living at the same times too. So we have certain things that happen. So we have to be smart and watch like Noah does. And then when they have a flood, that you get everybody out of the way. Or they have this other thing called a volcano that was Pompeii. And some people knew it was going to blow up and got out of the way, and some people didn't. The people who didn't got killed or hurt, and the people that did got out of the way. So what we need to do is learn how to make sure that, like, we have enough animals, and we do that with ourselves. We don't have to, if we're taking care of each other and not letting each other get hurt or killed or killing each other, we're not going to want to make and feel like we have to make a whole lot of babies. We're going to make this world as nice as we can for the babies that have. So most of us will say, I think I'll have maybe 1 or 2 kids. And some people will say, I don't think I want to have any kids. We'll be okay, that's okay. If you don't want to have kids, you shouldn't have kids, because it's a very big responsibility. It's a very beautiful responsibility. It's a very loving responsibility. It's a very fun responsibility. But I'm kind of partial because I like kids. So I take on that responsibility. But if people don't want to take on that responsibility, you will have kids. No. They said be fruitful and multiply, and they have a parable that Jesus talks to people in the Bible about. And they said, well, what if you say be fruitful and multiply, but what if there's one wife and the man tries to have a kid with her, and then he passes away, and then another brother does, and this happens 7 times, and they don't have any kids. They won't multiply, so they won't have kids like them or close to their sister or whatever. So, and Jesus goes, don't worry about it. God will take care of it. We'll still have your spirit will have a body, a temple to come back into. Just have faith in God and do the right thing, and know that God manages the flock and God is the builder of the temples. Even though we get together and make temples when we love each other, we know that mommy and daddies get together and have babies, and babies, come from mommy and daddy getting together and making a baby. It's really cool because it makes the cutest little babies, and they're so fun. And then we get to talk to them and learn from them and teach them and stuff. But God decides, and it will work out, and we'll learn how to manage our world better if we sit down and be like a smart little kid that figures out his world and how it works, and then helps other people understand how it works, like Noah and Jesus and other people like that. Was that cool? Thanks, Grandma. Grandma Lupe, you're so cool. Thank you. I know we sat and thought about it and talked about it, and you said it, and that lady talked about that. They're talking about kids like they're intelligent adults, and they are. They're intelligent young people that have adult capacity, definitely.